Part 2 laughter turned to silence when humanity's 8th-dimensional ship arrived. Humankind's quantum leap. Dr. Nadia Patel stared intently at the holographic display floating above her desk, her dark eyes reflecting the shimmering equations that danced in the air. The dim lighting of her cluttered office aboard the United Earth ship, UES, Infinity couldn't diminish her excitement as she reached out, manipulating the glowing symbols with practiced ease. "Eureka," she whispered, a grin spreading across her face. After months of relentless research and countless simulations, she had finally cracked the code, a revolutionary breakthrough in 8th-dimensional physics that would change the course of human history. Nadia's fingers flew across the console, saving her work and compiling the data into a concise report. She had no doubt that Captain Jace Riker would want to see this immediately. The Infinity, humanity's first 8D-capable ship, was preparing for its maiden voyage, and her discovery would be the key to unlocking its true potential. As she strode through the gleaming corridors of the ship, Nadia couldn't help but reflect on the long and arduous journey that had brought them to this point. For centuries, humanity had struggled to break free from the confines of their solar system, hampered by the vast distances and unfathomable dangers of interstellar travel. But through perseverance, ingenuity, and no small amount of luck, they had slowly but surely pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The development of quantum entanglement communication had been the first major leap forward, allowing instantaneous transmission of information across light years. Next came the advent of advanced propulsion systems, harnessing the power of artificial black holes and exotic matter to achieve faster-than-light speeds. Yet even with these incredible technologies at their disposal, humanity remained isolated, a lone species adrift in a sea of stars. It wasn't until Dr. Everly's groundbreaking work on dimensional mechanics that things truly began to change. His theories proposed the existence of higher spatial dimensions beyond the familiar three, offering tantalizing possibilities for circumventing the limitations of conventional spacetime. Governments and scientific institutions across Earth poured vast resources into exploring these concepts, determined to unlock the secrets of the multiverse. Nadia had been at the forefront of this research from the beginning, her brilliant mind and insatiable curiosity driving her to push past every obstacle in her path. When the UES Infinity project was greenlit, a joint venture between Earth's most advanced space agencies, she knew that she had to be a part of it. Now, as she entered the bridge of the magnificent vessel, Nadia felt a surge of pride at what they had accomplished. The sleek obsidian hull of the Infinity stretched out before her, its pulsing quadrinium core thrumming with barely contained power. Cutting-edge sensor arrays and dimensional field generators studded its surface, ready to pierce the veil between worlds. Captain Riker turned from his position at the central command console, his chiseled features etched with anticipation. "Dr. Patel," he greeted her warmly, "I take it from your expression that you have good news." Nadia nodded, unable to contain her excitement. "More than good news, Captain. I've made a breakthrough in our understanding of 8th-dimensional physics. With these new equations, we'll be able to navigate higher dimensional space with unprecedented precision and efficiency." Riker's eyes widened as he scanned through her report, the significance of her discovery sinking in. "This is incredible, Doctor. With this knowledge, there's no telling how far we can go or what we might discover." As the bridge crew erupted into a chorus of excited chatter and congratulations, Nadia allowed herself a moment to savor the achievement. She knew that this was only the beginning, the first step in a journey that would take them beyond the boundaries of the known universe. With the power of 8th-dimensional physics at their fingertips, humanity was poised to take its rightful place among the stars. Little did they know, however, that their greatest challenges and most profound revelations still lay ahead. In the vast expanse of interstellar space, ancient civilizations and cosmic wonders awaited them, mysteries that would test the limits of their understanding and force them to question everything they thought they knew. But for now, as the UES Infinity prepared to embark on its maiden voyage, the crew stood united in their determination to face whatever lay ahead, ready to prove that humanity was more than worthy of its place in the grand tapestry of the cosmos. As the UES Infinity sliced through the fabric of 8th-dimensional space, Captain Jace Riker couldn't help but marvel at the extraordinary vista that stretched out before them. Shimmering tendrils of exotic energy danced across the viewscreen, casting an ethereal glow throughout the bridge. It was a sight that no human had ever witnessed before, and Riker felt a deep sense of pride and humility at being part of this historic moment. "Status report," he called out, his voice steady despite the mounting excitement. Lieutenant Commander Lena Sorensen, the ship's navigator, looked up from her console with a grin. All systems nominal, Captain. The dimensional drive is operating at peak efficiency, and we're making excellent time. At this rate, we should reach the coordinates of the Zephyr Collective within the next 6 hours. Riker nodded, his eyes never leaving the mesmerizing display before him. The Zephyr Collective, a name that had only recently entered humanity's lexicon, thanks to the tireless work of the Infinity's long-range sensors and translation algorithms. An advanced civilization that had mastered the art of dimensional manipulation, the Zephyr were rumored to possess technology and knowledge far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. As the hours ticked by, the crew of the Infinity busied themselves with final preparations and system checks. Dr. Nadia Patel worked tirelessly in her lab, refining her 8D navigation algorithms and collaborating with the engineering team to ensure that the ship's dimensional shielding was operating at maximum capacity. Meanwhile, the diplomatic corps, led by the enigmatic ambassador Kyrie, pored over every scrap of information they had gleaned about Zephyr culture and customs, determined to make a positive first impression. When the Infinity finally dropped out of 8D space at the edge of Zephyr territory, the crew held their collective breath in anticipation. The viewscreen flickered to life, revealing a sight that defied description, a vast expanse of swirling, iridescent energy that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Amidst the chaos, sleek crystalline structures floated serenely, their angular surfaces refracting the light in dazzling patterns. Magnificent, breathed Nadia, her eyes wide with wonder. The Zephyr have learned to harness dimensional energies on a scale we can only dream of. Riker nodded, his expression a mix of awe and determination. Let's just hope they're willing to share some of that knowledge with us. Open a channel, Ambassador Ree. The screen shimmered and a figure appeared, a being composed entirely of shimmering, translucent energy, vaguely humanoid in shape but with an air of alien grace that was both beautiful and unsettling. Greetings, the figure spoke, its voice a melodic cascade of tones that seemed to bypass the ear and resonate directly in the mind. I am Vortex Harmonious, emissary of the Zephyr Collective. To whom do I have the pleasure of speaking? Ambassador Ree stepped forward, bowing deeply. Greetings, Vortex Harmonious. I am Ambassador Kyrie of the United Earth ship Infinity, representing the people of Earth. We come in peace, seeking friendship and the exchange of knowledge between our civilizations. There was a moment of silence, and then Vortex Harmonious laughed, a sound that was at once musical and mocking. Friendship, exchange of knowledge, how quaint. You humans are like infants, stumbling blindly through the dimensions with your primitive ships and rudimentary understanding of the universe. What could you possibly offer us in return? Riker bristled at the condescension in the Zephyr's tone, but Ambassador Ree remained unflappable. We may be young in the ways of dimensional travel, she replied calmly, but humanity has a long history of innovation and adaptability. We have much to learn from each other, and we come with open minds and hearts. Vortex Harmonious seemed to consider this for a moment, its form rippling with rainbow hues. Very well, it said at last. We will allow you limited access to our outermost trading post, but mind your manners, humans. The Zephyr Collective has little patience for primitive species who overstep their bounds. With that, the screen went blank, leaving the crew of the Infinity in stunned silence. Riker clenched his fists, anger and frustration warring with the need for diplomacy. Well, he said grimly, that could have gone better. But even as he spoke, a flurry of activity erupted on the bridge. Sensors lit up with incoming data and the comm channels buzzed with excited chatter. Captain, called out Lieutenant Commander Sorensen, her voice tight with tension, I'm picking up some strange readings from the Zephyr structures. It's like they're folding space around themselves. Dr. Patel rushed to her console, her fingers flying across the interface. Oh my God, she breathed, her face pale. They're not just manipulating dimensions, they're creating them. This is beyond anything we've ever seen. As the crew struggled to make sense of the impossible readings, Riker felt a growing sense of unease. The Zephyr's mocking laughter still echoed in his ears, a stark reminder of the vast gulf that separated their civilizations. But beneath the arrogance he sensed something else, a flicker of fear, carefully concealed but unmistakable. What secrets were the Zephyr hiding, he wondered, and what price would humanity have to pay to uncover them? As the Infinity drifted closer to the shimmering alien structures, Riker knew that they were standing on the brink of a revelation that would change everything. And he could only hope that they were ready for the challenges that lay ahead. Deep within the bowels of the UES Infinity, Dr. Nadia Patel pored over the data streaming in from the ship's sensors, her brow furrowed in concentration. The encounter with the Zephyr Collective had left her both exhilarated and troubled, her mind racing with the implications of what they had witnessed. "There's something we're missing," she muttered to herself, her eyes scanning the chaotic patterns that danced across her screen. "The way they manipulate dimensions, it's almost too perfect, as if they're following some hidden set of rules." Beside her, Dr. Marcus Everly, the Infinity's chief xenotechnologist and Nadia's longtime collaborator, nodded in agreement. "The Zephyr's technology is light years ahead of anything we've ever seen," he said, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and frustration. "But you're right. There's a pattern to it, a structure that we're just not seeing." For days, the two scientists worked tirelessly, poring over every scrap of data they had collected during their brief encounter with the Zephyr. They ran simulations, constructed theoretical models, and debated endlessly, trying to unravel the secrets of the alien civilization's dimensional mastery. As they worked, the Infinity continued its cautious exploration of Zephyr space, its crew marveling at the wonders that surrounded them. Vast, shimmering nebulae of exotic matter stretched out before them, their swirling depths hiding untold secrets. Strange, crystalline structures floated serenely in the void, their angular surfaces thrumming with barely contained power. And through it all, the Zephyr watched, their mocking laughter echoing across the comm channels whenever the Infinity attempted to communicate. "Primitive," they called the humans, their voices dripping with condescension, fumbling children playing with forces beyond their understanding. But Captain Jace Riker refused to be cowed by their taunts. He ordered the ship's sensors to probe deeper, to gather every scrap of information they could about the Zephyr's technology and culture. And slowly but surely, a picture began to emerge, one that hinted at a civilization on the brink of something momentous. "They're afraid," Nadia realized one day, her eyes widening with sudden understanding. "The Zephyr, they're not just mocking us, they're trying to keep us away from something." Marcus looked up from his own work, his expression curious. "What do you mean?" Nadia pointed to a series of fluctuations in the dimensional readings they had collected, her finger tracing the intricate patterns. "Look here," she said, her voice tight with excitement. "Every time we get close to this particular region of space, the Zephyr's activity spikes. They're folding dimensions around it, trying to hide it from view." Marcus leaned in closer, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data. "You're right," he said softly, "but what could they be hiding that's so important?" The answer came sooner than either of them could have anticipated. As the Infinity prepared to make another pass through the mysterious region, a sudden, urgent message came through on the comm channels. It was Vortex Harmonious, the Zephyr emissary, and its voice was taut with barely contained panic. "Humans," it said, its melodic tones stripped of their usual mocking edge. "You must leave this space immediately. You have no idea what you're dealing with." Captain Riker exchanged a glance with Ambassador Ree, his expression grim. "We're not going anywhere," he said firmly, "not until you tell us what's really going on here." There was a long, tense silence, and then Vortex Harmonious seemed to deflate, its shimmering form rippling with resignation. "Very well," it said, its voice heavy with a mix of fear and resignation. "But know this, humans, the knowledge you seek, it comes with a price." The screen flickered and a new image appeared, a vast, pulsing mass of pure dimensional energy, its chaotic tendrils stretching out across the stars. And at its center, a figure that defied description, a being of pure, terrifying power, its form shifting and changing with each passing moment. "The architects," Vortex Harmonious whispered, its voice trembling with awe. "The first beings to achieve true dimensional transcendence. They seeded the universe with their knowledge, guided the evolution of countless civilizations, and now they have returned." As the crew of the Infinity stared in stunned silence at the impossible image before them, Nadia felt a chill run down her spine. The Zephyr's fear, their desperate attempts to keep humanity away, it all made sense now. They weren't trying to protect themselves. They were trying to protect the humans. For the architects, in all their ancient, unfathomable power, had proven to be anything but benevolent gods. And as the Infinity drifted ever closer to their domain, Nadia knew that they were heading into a confrontation that would test the very limits of human understanding and courage. "We need to warn Earth," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to tell them what we've found." But even as she spoke, a new alarm blared across the bridge, and the crew scrambled to their stations in a flurry of activity. The architects, it seemed, had taken notice of the tiny, insignificant ship that dared to intrude upon their realm. And as the Infinity prepared to face the greatest challenge of its existence, Captain Riker could only hope that humanity's first contact with a higher dimensional civilization would not also be its last. The UES Infinity shuddered as another wave of dimensional energy slammed into its shields, the bridge crew struggling to maintain their footing amidst the chaos. Captain Jace Riker gripped the armrests of his command chair, his knuckles white with tension as he watched the viewscreen flicker and distort, the impossible form of the architect looming before them like a nightmare made manifest. "Evasive maneuvers," he barked, his voice cutting through the cacophony of alarms and shouted reports. "Get us out of here now." Lieutenant Commander Lena Sorensen's fingers flew across her console, her face a mask of concentration as she fought to keep the ship on course. "It's no use, Captain," she said, her voice tight with strain. "The Architect's dimensional field is too strong. We're trapped." Riker cursed under his breath, his mind racing as he tried to find a way out of this impossible situation. They had come so far, learned so much. And now, it seemed, they were doomed to be crushed like insects beneath the boot of a being beyond their comprehension. But even as despair threatened to overtake him, a sudden, desperate idea sparked in his mind. "Dr. Patel," he called out, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Can we use the dimensional drive to phase out of this realm, like we did when we first encountered the Zephyr?" Nadia looked up from her console, her eyes widening with sudden understanding. "It's risky," she said, her voice tight with tension. "But it might just work. If we can generate a localized dimensional field around the ship, we should be able to slip out of the Architect's grasp." Riker nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Do it," he said, his voice brooking no argument, "and pray that we don't tear ourselves apart in the process." As Nadia and her team worked frantically to reconfigure the dimensional drive, the Infinity shook and groaned under the onslaught of the Architect's power. Consoles sparked and smoked, the lights flickering as the ship's systems strained to their limits. And then, with a sudden gut-wrenching lurch, the ship vanished from the Architect's realm, slipping through the cracks between dimensions like a ghost. For a moment, there was only silence, the crew holding their collective breath as they waited to see if they had survived. And then, slowly, the lights flickered back to life, and the viewscreen cleared to reveal a sight that none of them had ever expected to see. They were adrift in a vast, shimmering expanse of pure dimensional energy, a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes that defied description. And they were not alone. "Captain," called out Ensign Taro Nakamura, the ship's communications officer. "We're being hailed, multiple signals from everywhere." Riker exchanged a glance with Ambassador Ree, his expression a mix of confusion and cautious hope. "On screen," he said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. The viewscreen flickered, and a dozen alien faces appeared, each one more strange and wondrous than the last. Some were vaguely humanoid, with shimmering skin and eyes that glowed with inner light. Others were utterly inhuman, their forms twisted and strange, as if sculpted from pure energy. And yet, despite their differences, they all shared one thing in common: a look of profound relief and gratitude as they gazed upon the tiny, battered ship that had just escaped the clutches of the Architect. "Well met, humans," one of them spoke, its voice a melodic whisper that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of space itself. "We have watched your journey with great interest, and we rejoice to see you alive and whole." Riker leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the alien faces before him. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice tinged with a mix of wonder and wariness. "And where are we?" The alien smiled, its expression somehow both alien and deeply familiar. "We are the lost," it said, its voice heavy with a mix of sorrow and pride. "The forgotten children of the Architects cast aside when we dared to question their wisdom. And this is the Nexus, the hidden realm between realms where we have taken refuge from their wrath." As the alien spoke, Riker felt a growing sense of kinship with these strange, wondrous beings. They too had dared to challenge the Architects, to seek a path beyond the limits of their understanding. And they too had paid the price for their curiosity. "The Zephyr," he said softly, his voice heavy with sudden understanding. "They were trying to warn us, weren't they, to keep us away from the Architect's notice." The alien nodded, its expression somber. "The Zephyr are wise," it said, its voice tinged with respect. "They have seen the truth of the Architects and they have chosen to keep their distance. But you humans, you are different. You have a courage, a curiosity that even the Architects cannot extinguish." Riker felt a swell of pride at the alien's words, mixed with a growing sense of determination. "We came here to learn," he said, his voice firm and unwavering, "to explore the wonders of the universe and to forge bonds of friendship and understanding with all the beings we encounter. And we will not be deterred by the architects or by any other force that seeks to keep us in the dark." The alien smiled, its eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and admiration. "Then let us forge an alliance, humans," it said, its voice ringing with a new note of hope. "Let us share our knowledge and our strength, and together we will face the architects and all the challenges that lie ahead." As the crew of the Infinity watched in wonder, the alien ships began to shimmer and glow, their forms shifting and changing as they merged with the dimensional energies around them. And slowly, tentatively, the Infinity began to move forward, its battered hull mending itself as it drank in the power of the Nexus. They had come so far, and yet their journey was only just beginning. But with new allies at their side and the power of dimensional science at their fingertips, the crew of the Infinity knew that they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. And as they set out into the vast, uncharted expanse of the multiverse, they knew that they carried with them the hopes and dreams of all humanity, and the promise of a future beyond anything they had ever dared to imagine. Transcending dimensions. As the UES Infinity sailed through the shimmering expanse of the Nexus, its crew marveled at the wonders that surrounded them. Vast, luminous structures of pure dimensional energy twisted and danced in the void, their forms shifting and changing with each passing moment. Strange, alien ships darted through the kaleidoscopic maelstrom, their hulls pulsing with the same otherworldly power that suffused the very fabric of this hidden realm. And at the center of it all, the forgotten children of the architects, their forms as varied and wondrous as the dimensions they called home. They moved among the human crew with a grace and fluidity that defied comprehension, their voices whispering secrets of the multiverse that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned explorers. In the ship's central lab, Dr. Nadia Patel and Dr. Marcus Everly worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of dimensional science, their minds alight with the possibilities that now lay before them. With the help of their new allies, they delved deeper into the fundamental forces that shaped reality itself, learning to manipulate the very fabric of space and time with a precision and power that would have been unthinkable just days before. But even as the Infinity and its crew reveled in their newfound knowledge and strength, a sense of unease hung over them like a pall. For they knew that the architects were still out there, their ancient, unfathomable power looming over the multiverse like a sword of Damocles, ready to strike at any moment. And strike they did. It began as a ripple in the fabric of the Nexus, a subtle distortion that set the dimensional energies to shivering and sparking. Then, with a sudden sickening lurch, the realm began to twist and warp around them, the impossible geometries of higher dimensions folding in on themselves like a collapsing house of cards. "Captain," cried out Ensign Nakamura, his voice taut with panic. "Incoming transmission from the Sci-Fi. It's vortex harmonious." Captain Riker felt a cold knot of dread settle in his stomach as he turned to face the view screen. The Sci-Fi emissary's form flickered and danced, its once-mocking eyes now wide with a fear that bordered on madness. "Humans," it croaked, its voice a broken whisper, "you must help us, the architects. They have come for us all." Riker exchanged a glance with Ambassador Ree, his expression grim. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "What are they doing?" Vortex Harmonious shuddered, its form rippling with a terror that seemed to emanate from the very core of its being. "They are unmaking us," it whispered, its voice barely audible over the rising din of alarms and shouts. "Unraveling the dimensions we call home, erasing us from existence itself. Please, you are our only hope." Riker felt a surge of anger and determination flood through him, washing away the last vestiges of fear and doubt. The Zephyr, once so proud and mocking, now begged for the aid of the very beings they had scorned. And the architects, the ancient, all-powerful beings who had once guided the evolution of the cosmos itself, now sought to unmake all that they had wrought. It was a bitter irony, and one that Riker would not allow to stand. "Dr. Patel," he called out, his voice ringing with a new note of command. "Can we use the dimensional drive to navigate the distortions to reach the heart of the architect's power?" Nadia hesitated for a moment, her eyes flickering with a mix of fear and determination. I think so," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But it will be dangerous. We'll be pushing the drive to its limits and beyond. There's no guarantee we'll make it back." Riker nodded, his jaw set with grim resolve. "We have to try," he said, his voice brooking no argument. For the sake of the Zephyr and for all the beings of the multiverse, we cannot let the architects win. As the crew of the Infinity scrambled to their stations, their faces taut with a mix of fear and exhilaration, Riker turned to face the viewscreen once more. The Nexus bucked and heaved around them, the one shimmering expanse now shot through with veins of sickly, pulsating darkness. And there, at the center of the maelstrom, a sight that sent chills down the spines of all who beheld it. The architects themselves, their forms as vast and incomprehensible as the dimensions they sought to unmake. They moved through the chaos with a terrible, implacable purpose, their every gesture sending shockwaves of destruction rippling through the fabric of reality itself. "Engage the dimensional drive," Riker commanded, his voice steady and unwavering. "Take us in." The Infinity surged forward, its engines screaming as it plunged headlong into the heart of the storm. Reality twisted and shattered around them, the ship's hull groaning under the strain of forces beyond human comprehension. But still they pressed on, guided by the steely determination of their captain and the brilliant minds of their crew. They danced through the shattered dimensions like a silver needle threading a tapestry of madness, their every move a defiance of the architect's terrible power. And then, with a sudden, blinding flash of light, they were through. The Infinity hung in a vast, empty expanse of pure white, the chaos of the Nexus nothing more than a fading memory. And there before them the architects themselves, their forms as strange and terrible as the dreams of a fevered god. "Attention, architects," Riker called out, his voice ringing through the stillness like a clarion call. "This is Captain Jace Riker of the United Earth ship Infinity. We come in peace, seeking to understand your purpose and to find a way to coexist in harmony with all the beings of the multiverse." For a long, tense moment, there was nothing but silence. And then, with a sound like the shattering of 1,000 worlds, the architects spoke. "You dare," they thundered, their voices as cold and unyielding as the void itself. "You dare to challenge our will, to question our purpose. You are nothing, insignificant specks in the grand design of the cosmos. We are the ARCHITCTS, the shapers of reality itself, and we will not be denied." But even as the words rang out, heavy with the weight of eons, Riker felt a strange, inexplicable calm settle over him. He turned to Nadia, who stood beside him, her eyes shining with a fierce, unyielding light. "Show them," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Show them what we have learned." And Nadia, with a smile that held the promise of 1,000 worlds, began to speak. She spoke of the wonders they had seen, of the impossible geometries of higher dimensions and the fundamental forces that shaped the cosmos itself. She spoke of the bonds they had forged, of the alliances they had built with beings as strange and wondrous as the stars themselves. And as she spoke, the architects began to change. Their forms shifted and warped, the cold, unyielding light of their eyes softening to something almost like wonder. And slowly, impossibly, they began to listen. In the end, it was not the power of the Infinity's weapons or the brilliance of its technology that saved the multiverse from annihilation. It was the simple, indomitable power of understanding, of the ability to see beyond the veil of fear and ignorance, and to find common ground with even the most alien of beings. And as the crew of the Infinity watched in awe, the architects began to weave a new tapestry of reality, one in which the myriad dimensions of the cosmos were not a source of discord and strife, but a wondrous, infinite canvas upon which all beings could paint the stories of their lives. In the years that followed, the tale of the Infinity and its crew would become legend, whispered in reverent tones by beings across the length and breadth of the multiverse. They had dared to challenge the very gods themselves, and in doing so had forever changed the course of history. But for Captain Riker and his crew, it was simply another day in the life of a starship crew. A day filled with wonder and terror, with laughter and tears, and with the unshakable knowledge that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family. And as the Infinity sailed off into the endless expanse of the multiverse, its hull gleaming with the light of 1 billion stars, Riker knew that there was no place he would rather be. For he was an explorer, a seeker of knowledge and understanding, and the multiverse in all its infinite wonder and mystery was his home.